Hey, Brew, we're live.
All right. We are live here at the Attention Era Media Studios in beautiful downtown Milwaukee. You're watching hour 11 of our 24-hour Google Hangouts covering a wide topic of all kinds of things community manager related from people all around the world. It's been pretty exciting. When we started this, it was dark. Now it's light, and when we end, it'll be dark again. We want to give a shout out to our CMAT award sponsors, which we'll be handing out, I think, the first award in an hour or so.
Yeah, just about.
Okay, and that is BTC Revolutions, Flockler, Higher Logic, My Community Manager, Online Community Results, socialmedia.org, and Sprout Social. And then, of course, thank you to all of the people and companies that helped pull together the entire CMAT.co today. So we're the gang from My Community Manager. I'm Brew, co-producer here, also a director of Awesome at Be the Change Revolutions, and this is Sherry.
Hey everyone, I'm Sherry Reddy. I lead community and user experience at Rebellion Media and co-produce CMJ Hangout here with Brew.
Hey guys, I'm Dom. I am a freelancer by day, and
you're messing yourself up.
I'm messing myself up. Yeah, I'm trying too hard there. It's 11 hours in. I shouldn't try to freestyle. Anyway, I help these guys out with My Community Manager.
So awesome. So we have community programs in action, and I'm just going to hand it over to you, Destin, and we'll sit back and enjoy.
Great. Thanks so much. Thanks for all of your organizational and hosting duties again this year. It's been great, and I am so excited to be hosting the panel in the 11th hour, not the technical 11th hour on that sense, but this is great, and I'm super excited about the panel of participants we have here today. So we're just going to jump in and do our introductions, and at the same time as introducing ourselves, it'd be great to introduce your community as well and give some examples. If you have any photos or anything you wanted to tweet out as well, that's great. But yeah, let's just jump in. Harmony, did you want to start and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. It's just beginning to be light out where I am. I definitely have like coffee with me. My name is Harmony. I'm the Nation Builder Evangelist. Nation Builder is a software company that makes community organizing software, so that's pretty cool. My job is about building the broader community of people who build community. So I say the word community a lot in my day-to-day life. And I'm just tweeting out now an example of one of our customers, and I'll tell you a little bit about her. Her name is Kathleen Wynne, and she's the Premier of Ontario. She's the first female Premier, and she's also the first openly gay head of state in Canada. And she was one of our customers a couple years ago, and is probably like the person who signified the beginning of a real global reach for Nation Builder. She ran a really unusual political campaign. It was very centered on community organizing and direct grassroots outreach. And actually, since her win, her son has gone on to start a consulting firm that has helped a lot of other people in Canada run similar kinds of community-based campaigns. And I think one of the reasons that this is on my mind is I actually just came back from Vancouver, where we launched one of our first field offices in Canada, so that the growth of people there who are really thinking about community as a source of power has grown really fast. Yeah, so Kathleen Wynn's one of our examples. She's somebody that we're really proud of, and a good example of some of the folks that we work with.
Always do that in the beginning. Great, thanks so much. Megan, did you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, guys. I'm excited to be here today. I lead social product and community at Rebel Mouse. And actually, much like Nation Builder, what we're doing is building a set of tools for people who create communities, just in a slightly different way. We're focused around building content-focused communities, so it's sort of a next-gen publishing tool for big brands and enterprise in particular, but we also have a free offering for individuals and nonprofits. One cool example that I get excited about is we had Cory Booker use it for his last campaign, and he had people like hold up signs about how they're with Cory Booker, and it all fed into our platform and was a great visual way to represent what was going on with him in social. So that's a really fun one. The other thing, just in terms of my introduction, is most notably before this, I was leading community at Clout. the social influence measurement, so had a lot of, you know, community management lessons while I was there as well.
Great, thanks so much. And Trish?
Hi, I'm Trish Fontanilla. I'm currently the Global Director of Community at Startup Institute. Startup Institute is an 8-week program for people that are looking to get into startups. So our cool thing is not only do we cover the hard skills, so intro to Ruby, Google Analytics, and that kind of stuff, but we also do soft skills as well. So we talk about emotional intelligence, networking, and at the end of the program, all of our students get to do a demo day of sorts. So they get to do a 60-second pitch of themselves, what they're passionate about, and what startup they want to work at in front of an audience of people that are hiring. So my community currently is, when we're in programs, so we have these 8-week programs 3 times a year in Boston, Chicago, New York, Berlin, and London. So that's the student community, but I also have the alumni community, which we haven't really done a lot with until I came on board. And then most recently, I was the VP of Community and Customer Experience at an app called VSAP, which is a video messaging app. I was the first employee, and so I got to build the community from the ground up, which is really awesome, so I'll probably share some stories from that, as opposed to this community that I'm in right now, which is about 2-ish years old. So what I'm going to share is actually a GIF. I say GIF, I don't know if there's GIF people out in the universe, of our fall cohort. And what's kind of unique is we create this really warm community while they're in session, and they end up being these like mini startups, and then integrating them into the alumni community is a whole other experience. So they're kind of giggling, and I just love this GIF. It just makes me smile all the time whenever I see it.
Awesome, thanks. And last but not least, Jelena, hopefully we can hear you now. No, it doesn't seem like we can, unfortunately. Well, while she tries to fix that, I'll give a quick introduction of myself. So my name is Destin, and currently, along with Crystal, who is not here right now, I co-founded the Community Collective, which is a group in Vancouver, BC. And what we want to do is work with startups and brands to help them build their communities from the ground up. So looking to empower them and educate them on community building, community programs, anything like that. So we've had the opportunity to work with some really interesting startups and brands in Vancouver. And we've been doing this for a few months now. And then prior to that, I was the director of community at Hootsuite. So I'll probably speak a little bit on both of those, but we have such a powerhouse panel that I feel like I will mostly do the facilitating and allow you guys to speak on your experience. But again, thank you everyone for being here. And I'm just going to check back in. Jelena, do you think you had any success with the sound?
Any luck now? No?
Yeah. Sounds
Sweet.
good.
Okay. Yeah. I just had one. I thought my headphones had a mic and they don't, so I think that's been the whole problem. So hi. Welcome to my technical difficulties, my living room, my couch. Welcome to the fact that I have a fireplace in LA and it's on, and that's ridiculous because I'm not a morning person or a cold person whatsoever. I'm Jelena. I work with Flipagram as Director of Community. Before I was at Flipagram, I was with a company called Good. You may know it from Good Magazine, Good.is, the online publication, kind of the Rolling Stone of social good. Prior to that, I spent some time as community manager for Yahoo Contributor Network, which was one of Yahoo's user-generated content plays where anybody could monetize the experience that they have in life in the world. And yeah, just settled into Flipagram about a month ago and having an awesome time. Thank you for having me here.
Great. Yeah, so let's just jump right into our questions. So the first one that we wanted to cover is what has been your most successful community program and what made it successful? So you can speak on your current experience or past experience or even something that you've seen out there that you think was really successful and why you think it was. So Trish, did you want to start?
Sure. I think that I'll probably speak from my past experience because I've only been in my current job for about 3 months. But I think the thing that for us at Visa, my past life, that was most important, that helped the most for us, was actually using our product with our community and customers, and really believing it in that the awesomeness that is video. So I think a couple of folks told me this, have heard me tell this story before, but I used to send videos to everyone that followed us on Twitter, just as a way to get to know them better. And it was really, really amazing in that people actually noticed that we took time to see what they're about. So anytime anyone follows on Twitter, barring people that had shady links to share and that were posting like lewd photos, I would actually go to their profile, see where they were from, talk and comment about their bio. So, hey, Sherry, like, would be example. She just looked up and was like, wait, I'm talking to me. Hey, Sherry, I'm Trish from VSAP. Just wanted to send you a quick message to say thanks for the follow. I see that you're a community manager. That's really awesome. I would do the high fives, which some people thought was amazing because you do that, or that was really awkward. But just really showed that we were getting to know them as people. And for us, not having a storefront, not having a way for people to connect with us, and just walk in the door, it was a really great way to humanize our organization and let people know that there are indeed human beings behind the product. So anytime they had issues, anytime they wanted to ask questions, anytime people wanted another recommendation for another video platform, they could actually talk to me about it. And I was really upfront with folks about whether or not they should use our product. I would often refer them to another product if it was necessary. But also, when they were stuck, they knew that there is a person on the other end. And so it was really awesome because I noticed we had released our apps a few months before that people weren't getting as angry about us on social, or there weren't any caps locks tweets about things being broken. People would message me directly, or when they would message me where they'd say, hey, Trish, just wanted to check in. The app is actually broken right now. If you could get back to me, you can. Be really awesome, as opposed to, oh, my God, you guys suck, and just like completely flooring on us. So it was really cool to do that because I think once people realize, and think in general, when you scream out to the universe on social, sometimes you don't think that you're going to actually get a human response. You think you're going to get an automated response. It really created this sense of community with people because they can go to us for anything. And that goes for people. I've helped people get jobs. I've helped people when they're moving, intro them to other community members. So things that had nothing to do with the product. People just saw us as friends. And I think that video was just a really strong way to get to know our community.
And how did you programatize that, would you say? Like, how did you ensure that that was something that could be carried forward or that could be built upon, like in terms of, did you build in metrics or processes? Like, how did you ensure that that turned into a program that you were able to maybe replicate or speak to?
Yeah, totally. So it was sort of built into my time every day. So the CEO actually knew that I was doing it. People, when they saw me in like a certain corner of the office, they're like, okay, Trish is talking to the community members right now. Don't bother her, which I think is, when I talk to community managers, is like really important. There was actually buy-in from people in the organization that saw that it was an important part. Even though I wasn't direct selling the product, I was just talking to people. And a lot of those people I say like there's a difference between community members and customers. And a lot of those folks like weren't customers. They were just folks that were following us on Twitter, were interested in stuff that we blogged about. And so one of the things that we measured was action rate. So did people reply to us? Did they favor the tweet? Did they retweet the tweet? Stuff around that engagement. And we measured that. I did that on a probably bi-weekly basis. And I also did a kind of hack storify where I would take the tweets and populate it into a storify. And this is probably not what I was supposed to be using storify for. And they didn't have private storify just yet. But I would highlight all of the folks that had interacted with us. And there were some folks that expressed like really genuine interest in learning more about the product. And so people that were in customer success or sales can get in touch with those people that expressed interest in that. But so that the entire company, developers to the sales team, could see the importance of developing the community and building relationships. So there's the metrics, there's the buy-in from the team, and then there was also me giving out a report probably I would say it ended up being bi-weekly. It started off with bi-weekly and it ended up being weekly when there's a lot of content to share.
Awesome, thanks. Anyone else want to jump in with their most successful community program?
I can do mine if that's cool. This is kind of a little ways back, but it's fresh in my mind right now because I actually just got an email about it this week from someone who remembers it. When I was at Yahoo, we had something called Contributor Academy, which was a 3-level education in content publishing on the web with all of these custom illustrations, which were actually by this incredible artist who's now a startup founder himself, and it was the very, very start of his freelance art career. And it walked you through the first level was how to use the actual publishing platform. Then the second was writing mechanics, and the third was building an audience. And it's the only thing I've ever gotten to work on that had over 95% positive feedback from a large, diverse online community. I don't know how we pulled that off. It was a lot of spending money on illustration, on design, on instructional design. It was one of those things where it was like, we're going to spend both the time and money to make this good. Like we're just going to do it right. And I still get emails saying it's no longer online, but I still get frequent emails like, did you save these courses? Can I get these again? People would mentor each other through them. People would be each other's kind of a study buddies. It was freaking great. I had a great time with it. It was cool.
And why do you think that it was so successful? Do you have any idea? Do you ever get any feedback from people specifically about what made it so successful?
You know, I think a lot of it was just that commitment to we're going to do this right, you know, whatever it takes, having real instructional design for it, introducing it with feedback from the community. We previewed it to influencers. We talked a lot about what would you like to see in this. We talked a lot about bringing it out before we ever did bring it out. So it was really, it was the willingness to spend the time and the money.
Totally. I think that's a really good point. Megan, what about you? What's your most successful community program?
It's hard because I realize it's like you go through and you have all these moments that stand out to you, and it's hard to choose just one. So if it's okay, I'm going to choose 2 slightly different ones. One was of our own Rebel Mouse community. And that was gosh, now almost 3 years ago, and we had really, I'd worked hard on kind of like having like a little sort of insider peek just with us on Twitter before we had a site, of like trying to share the things that fit with our audience and that type of thing, and developing relationships through email of early previews and talking to people and really building this into something that then there was a place where you could go and you would sort of sign up with Twitter and like save your username, and that was all really thought around like how do we get people, you know, who are in our early community to express interest and get first in line, and then we would start to like slowly let people in, taking in feedback, changing things, and really evolving. So as we got like the early people in who we knew would be kind of our insiders and friendly, we changed the product, made it better, and then started to let more and more people in, so that it was just overwhelmingly such a positive experience for us and everyone who was a part of it. They really felt like they were part of something special, something that was still evolving, and that they were influencing that. And that really made them want to share their friends more than something that's just like, oh, this is sort of out and done. And so that was a really special thing from a community point of view. Then the second thing is actually for one of the communities we work with, which is MTV's Teen Wolf show, which is an incredibly social show, very popular, especially with teenagers. And they had a vibrant community sharing things all over the place, and we helped them create a community hub called The Collective, where users could sign in and actually create content that the MTV and Teen Wolf team would then feature. And because of that idea that it was really a community-created place as opposed to an editorially created place, it really was very successful, and it exceeded expectations of the MTV team by quite a few times.
Awesome. Sorry, just trying to find the unmute button. Great. And Harmony, how about you?
So one of the things that I want to share is actually part of our organizational structure. So I think one of the best things that we ever did was, instead of having a sales team and a customer service team the way you would sort of normally expect a software company to be set up, we actually just have an organizing team. So we have a group of folks who are experienced community organizers, and they come from really different backgrounds. So we have, people who've worked on political campaigns, and people who've started businesses, and musicians, and nonprofit experts, and education leaders. So it's a really big group of folks. But each one of them works with a whole host of customers, and sort of similar to some of the things that Trish was talking about, this has led to people having like a one-on-one relationship with their organizer. So if they have an issue, they don't call a customer service line, they call an organizer, and that person knows their whole history. They have worked with them over the months or years that they've been a customer. They've gone through the ups and downs of campaigns, or Giving Tuesday, or all of the cycles that our customers go through, and they're also experienced organizers, so they know what it's like to be out there door knocking. They know what it's like to try to raise money on a budget, and that's been just wildly successful. So people are forgiving when there are mistakes, but they're also our biggest champions. They use the software much more thoroughly than they would otherwise, and they form a community with each other. And that's how I started, actually. I was one of the organizers before I was the evangelist, and that program worked so well, we've sort of taken it and started to do other similar things. So we now do things like we certify designers or consultants in our software, and we have people managing those communities who are experts in that. So we have Brian Tippy, for example, is our architect evangelist. He is a designer. He knows that world. He knows what it's like to freelance and try to run businesses that way. So he works with all our designers to figure out how can we best serve them, and they all have a personal relationship with him. So designing it so that as much as possible people have their one person that's their buddy at Nation Builder, that knows what they've gone through, knows what it's like to be where they are, I think has probably been one of the most successful things that we've done.
Awesome. These are some really incredible programs. So Trish, you brought up the concept of buy-in, and so before we go to the third question, I kind of wanted to pose that to the panel a little bit, because I think from my experience, having buy-in is so integral to having a successful community program. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how you've managed to get buy-in for some of your successful programs, and I think the concept of buy-in then will then lead us into talking about least successful programs, because sometimes the lack of buy-in can contribute to that. But just thinking of the concept of buy-in, how do you get that? Why is it so important? So I'll just kind of leave that open if anyone wants to talk about that concept. Anybody want to jump in?
I'll happily have an opinion about that. I think even more important than buy-in perhaps is that sense of ownership, that it is a community created thing, that people aren't just willing to accept what we have from on high tell them it's going to happen, but that they feel like they're part of it. So in an ideal scenario, it's probably not even buy-in so much as that there's an experience of a dialogue or a co-collaboration of things. So as companies or as organizations, we might be the one to initially birth this particular view, but in its best form, it's always going to be oh, that's the thing I was hoping would exist, or I've been talking about something like this, and maybe these people built it, but it's definitely my idea, and I'm part of this community. I'm part of the person that's helping to build it. And I think the only way that happens is when you have as many personal relationships as possible, which I think has been sort of a theme people have been talking about. How do you have people feel like they're seen and known and heard and appreciated? So yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I guess I'll tag in there and say I think that it's really important when you think about getting buy-in that it not just be sort of oh, look at this thing, we're previewing it for you, but in terms of internally in the company, it's already set and done. And I think that that's where it's important that community managers work really closely with product teams and other aspects of the company to say, I can't get community buy-in unless we can have a conversation about things. And it doesn't mean that you're roadmap has to fall in line with exactly the roadmap of, you know, the 10 people you're going to talk to. But if you're not willing to listen to that feedback and act on it, then I don't think you're really creating the right environment to talk to power users. And I think that's something that I've seen again and again is people notice when you're just giving them lip service and you're not actually listening and trying to really take their feedback into account.
Yeah, I think on the buy-in end, the most important things that people need to consider is, and then I've used when I'm getting a buy-in is, does this match our values, and is this going to help the company move forward? Because different people, I've been called the like chief warm and fuzzy officer at the companies that I've been in, because if it were up to me, I would spend hours and hours and hours of writing thank you notes and doing personal things and going to see people in person. But if you can't actually relate that to how the company can move forward, to revenue or whatever, to the audience that you're talking to, so again, you have to change, not change your message, but you have to know who your audience is and how you're selling this community program. It's like, it won't go over well. But when I have someone, specifically when I was at VSTEP, I was like, this lives out all the values that we have. We have 6 values, and I can like state which ones and how this will help our community move forward. And then most importantly, I have, as a community person, you have your people, like the community, number one in mind. And so helping them grow and helping your team realize how important it is, the community program is super important.
Awesome. Thanks so much for jumping in on that sort of random question that I asked. But I do think that all those points are really great and kind of lead into the next question, which is, have you had a non-successful program, and why wasn't it so successful? I think we've touched on a few points that might be relevant to that, potentially not having enough buy-in, or like you just mentioned, Trish, maybe not aligning with all of the core values or something. But yeah, if anyone wanted to jump in, maybe Megan, do you have an example of a not successful program that you want to talk about?
I was muted. Yeah, I guess I do. I think if you're really trying to do new things that you're unsure of, occasionally they fail. And I think it's important to be able to talk about that too. When I was at Clout, I started a program called Clout Squad, and it was for our top influencers to be able to have that kind of feedback between power users and Clout. And eventually we got to a good place with it. But when we started, I decided I was like, oh, okay, what platform should we use? How should this community be? What does this mean? And we started as a Ning group. And I'm sure Ning, works maybe in certain cases. I'm not sure. But what we found with our group is obviously these are people kind of with high cloud scores who love cloud, so they're on social networks all the time. They're on Twitter, they're on Facebook, they're on these different things. But when we asked them to join a network basically just for this program, they did it, but then there wasn't that conversation there, and it was very slow moving. It was kind of like pulling teeth, and it was like, do they even want to do this? It was like all this back and forth and worry about it. And then, I talked to some people about it, and, using that feedback like we talked about, realized that they just don't want another place they have to sign into. And we moved it to a Facebook group. And then suddenly I couldn't even keep up with how many comments there were. So it really is about kind of matching what you're doing. And, if at first you don't succeed, try again.
Awesome. Jelena, do you have an unsuccessful community program that you want to talk about?
Yeah. I actually, in the same job, I had a community ambassadors program that worked for a little while. It was around getting established community members to commit to welcoming new people to the community, mentoring them as they got in, all those things that sound really great on paper. But because of the nature of the community, so this is, I think Megan made some awesome points about community-based and platform-based reasons a community program can fail. I think it's important to also just think about and recognize that sometimes the failure ends up being totally, totally out of your control, and then you still have to be the face of that failure to the community, no matter how it happens. There were complicated legalese and big company policy reasons that we had to end what was actually a popular program with the community. And that was definitely unsuccessful because, of course, the only thing anybody ever remembered about that program was that it got taken away from them right when they got to like it. And it was like, okay, so we just launched something and asked for your trust in it. We did it for a few months. Then we took it away from you when you were just getting to like it. And now, like, we're actually to less trust with you in this regard than we started out at, because next time we want to try to do something around welcoming and mentoring people into the community, you're going to be like, oh yeah, so I'm going to learn to do this and like put this badge on my profile, and then you're going to shut it down when your lawyer says that you have to for some weird esoteric reason. So yeah, that kind of thing, that's part of the job, and it becomes what's remembered about the program, and it becomes kind of the face of how you handled the program, even if it's totally out of your control, and that can suck.
And how did you handle that any sort of negativity and that communication with your community to sort of try and re-engender that trust following a failure?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing was we ended up hiring one of our users shortly after that failure to be a community advocate. She had been incredibly active in that program. She'd been the most active in that program. And we ended up saying we're just going to create a job for her where she's like a layer between the company and the community, where if they want to give anonymous feedback, if they just want someone to go to bat for them, they're completely empowered to talk to her. And that decision, bringing somebody in specifically to advocate for the community, it was a particularly sensitive community because it was a community where participants had ways to earn money by participating. So of course, you mess with somebody's money, you're messing with the dragon. Like, what's the motto of Hogwarts? Non quandus titilandum draconis something something, never tickle a sleeping dragon. You tickle the sleeping dragon if you mess with somebody's pocketbook. So that the biggest thing, I think, was, showing, like, we're not, even though we shut down this thing that you liked, we're showing you that we're putting our full faith in you and our full transparency and honesty in you by actually hiring one of you to be part of our team and to advocate for what you need.
Great. And Harmony, do you have a program that you want to talk about?
Yes, I don't know if I can top quoting Harry Potter. That was pretty awesome. So one thing I think, I'll give an example, but I think the lesson is something that we're still really chewing on is there's like, that it's important to not just do things because they seem like the standard way to do things. So that was definitely, like, we started out really well with the organizer program, but one place where we only have sort of recently corrected course is in doing social media sort of the way you're supposed to do social media. And it's like, cool, you just like start a company Twitter account, and you have a bunch of, either one person or a bunch of people manage it, and you use that to try to reach people. And recently we were trying to figure out, like, what's the voice of Nation Builder? What does Nation Builder sound like, so that we could create consistency, especially as we scale. Because now it's no longer really works for just our CEO to like tweet on Twitter by himself, like in between things. Like, at some point we have to have like a team of folks. And we really struggled. Like, we couldn't figure out what that was. And eventually we sort of had this breakthrough where we realized that part of the issue was that we spent so much time talking about the importance of people and of building one-to-one relationships, and that our social media having like this barrier of like a business voice didn't really work with that. So we started experimenting with this idea, and it's turned out to be really successful. So I think we're going to keep doing it, where the Nation Builder Twitter account actually never tweets anything, and it only retweets the voices of our community. So that isn't a thing that would work for every organization. We're a company of community organizers, so everybody's Twitter account's really active. We have lots of customers who are really active on Twitter, so that really works. We still have plenty of things to say, but now the company in the social media spaces is really uplifting the voices of the community, which is part of our mission. And so finding like creative ways to use like traditional mediums in non-traditional ways fits our like values a lot better. and that's something, like I said, we've only sort of just now figured out, but that's like a lesson we're chewing on. How do we not just take for granted that you're supposed to use certain tools in certain ways, but actually deeply think about how to use them in the ways that fit what we're trying to create with our folks.
And so I guess ultimately that's what everyone hopes will come from an unsuccessful program, is you learn something that becomes successful and you then apply it moving forward and something great comes out of it. So that's pretty amazing. And what about you, Trish? Do you have a program that you wanted to talk about?
I think that it was, it's not necessarily a program, but it was something that was happening at my current company is we were just holding a lot of parties. Which, like, is probably not the worst thing in the world. But so the people that come out of Startup Institute, they get these jobs at startups. They come from this really close community while they're in the Startup Institute, and we weren't really considering, and this is before my time, like future career growth. Like that's why they came to us in the first place, was to help grow in their career and to change their lives. And we were holding a lot of parties, which like happens in the startup world, but they weren't really thinking of the alumni experience. And so I guess I'm cheating into another conversation that we'll probably talk a little later, is if I'd gone back, I probably would have mapped out a little more of the customer experience. So when they come into the program, what happens afterwards. And it's more than just, putting people in a room, paying for beer, paying for food, and like letting them get together, but really taking into consideration what they want out of the community. And as an event person, like I go to so many happy hours a week, but what really draws me to events is the content. And so what we started doing since I got here is really invest more in the alumni experience. So bringing in people that help, so now you're an employee at a startup. What do you do now to like speak up for yourself? Or what do you do to negotiate salary? Or what do you do? All these sort of things that happen after you get the job, and showing that we're supportive of folks even after they're past our small internal community that we've created for them, that we're still supporting them even after they're done with the product. And so that's been our lesson learned is, yeah, parties are really great, but you need to intersperse them with things that will really bring folks together. And what we've seen is folks that graduated a couple of years ago are actually coming to these meetups. Whereas before, when we were doing these happy hours, like just because you have free beer and free stuff to hand out and swag doesn't mean people are going to show up for things. They want really quality content. So that was like sort of programmy, fail-ish learning.
No, that's good. And I think you brought up sort of what would be the next question that we wanted to jump into. So I think maybe if you want to elaborate a bit more on that, is if you could go back to the beginning, what would you do differently, or what do you wish that you had done differently? It could be about the program, it could be about your role in general, but what's something that you wish you'd done differently, especially maybe in relation to unsuccessful programs?
Yeah, I think that again, in startups, there's a certain point in time when you're early on and you just like run and go, and then you fail fast, and then you pick up, and it's cool. But then as you get to, I don't even know what some people's markers are for like an advanced community. I know Community Roundtable has actually a really great sheet on different stages communities are in. But what I was privileged to do at my last job at VSNAP was to be VP of Community and Customer Experience. So actually, before I got my promotion, when I was a community manager, I went home and actually mapped out the whole like customer experience. So how did people interact with us 6 months before they even use the product, all the way to a year afterwards? How are we still supporting them? And I think that when we do programs, we often think about, we spend a lot of time about how are we going to launch the program, how are we going to educate people about this program that we're introducing, but we're not necessarily thinking about what happens afterwards. So they're in the program and they're doing all these things. What happens 3 months out? What happens 6 months out? These early adopters, how are you still supporting them? How are you still helping them? Or are you busy onboarding everybody else that's there? So I think that there are some programs that you just want to try and get over with, but it's really important to think, how does this affect our community long term? How do we support it financially? Will we have to hire someone eventually? And you don't want to plan those things too much. We always say in Startup World, like if you have no mistakes in the plan, then you took too long to launch the program. But you do want to plan out for what happens if this is successful. And I think that would have been great early on as they were testing, realizing, hey, we create this really amazing close community when students are in. It's almost like they're in their own little startup. They're helping each other. They're crying. They're talking to each other about the stuff that's outside the program. And then when the program's done, we kind of push them out into the real world, and they don't meet with these people every day. They don't meet with us every day, and what happens there. So if I had to go back, really looking at the entire experience, even if it wasn't fully mapped out, to at least take into consideration what should happen after people end the program and our classes and our cohort.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. I think that you can run the risk of wanting to get something out there and get that program started, and sometimes you don't have the time, or you don't feel like you have the time to really look at everything from all the angles. But I think having that foresight to kind of review it and think about what are all the phases and where you're going to go is really important. So I'll open up that question to the rest of the panel. If you could go back to the beginning and do something differently, what would it have been?
I'll jump in. I think it came to mind as I was looking at what we were going to talk about today, and trying to think of all the moments over the past 3 years at Rebel Mouse, and then obviously before that in my career, is just that I wish I actually wrote stuff down more or kept it somewhere, because in the moment you just rely on your memory, and that works well for any given plus or minus 2 month period. But when you start to get 3 years later, you're like, oh, who are the people who are really excited about our launch? What were those tweets? And it actually is useful just in terms of when the next thing launches, you want to reach back out to those people who loved the last thing and make sure they're getting a special invitation for the new thing. You want to make sure that was brought up here, like Trish was saying, like sharing things with your company, and that can be at the moment, can be later, but all these little things to keep track of what worked, what didn't work. So much of the time, I at least find myself relying on like, oh yeah, I totally know this, it's stuck in my mind forever, but forever disappears way too quickly.
Yeah, definitely. I've been there before as well, like not having those personal resources on hand, or thinking I'll never forget this moment. This is such a pivotal moment. I'll never forget this. This lesson is ingrained in my head, and then trying to recall it later on, and it's gone. So I think that's definitely some good advice. So we've got about 7 minutes left, and so I wanted to skip ahead because I really wanted to get to question 6. So we're going to skip question 5. Apologies if anyone is really interested in that. But question 6 is about advice, and so I think this kind of ties into this, going back to the beginning concept a little bit, but I wanted to touch on thinking about new community managers, or really any community managers at any level, but what's some advice or recommendations you would give to a community manager just starting out, or mid-level, or more senior? I think that this is something for me in my career that I've always, sought out is advice and mentorship, and I think that's a really big part of community management and community as a whole. So I just kind of wanted to leave that open to the panel. I guess, Megan, if you wanted to jump in first, because you were sort of talking on this topic already, and then we'll kind of go round robin from there.
Sure, yeah. So in addition to kind of writing things down, I mean, gosh, I guess it's related. I do think every time I've taken the step back to kind of blog about lessons I've learned and things like that, it's been really more helpful for me than I realized in sort of really internalizing my strategy as a community manager and our community and how that differs from other people. Because I think one thing that's come up again and again is the same strategies don't work for every community. It's completely different based on what you're trying to accomplish, your community members, all of those things. So the more you can step back and think about what you've learned and writing them down, whether that be on a blog post, because hey, why not? Get it out there, get some more content out for your community, or just internally, it's really, really helpful.
Awesome. Harmony, do you have any advice that you would give?
Yeah, I think my advice for people at every stage is the same, but maybe how you manage it is a little different. But I think the most important thing that I could say is you have to talk to people's faces with your face. That's the number one piece of advice. it's so easy to want to rely on Twitter and Facebook groups, and those are useful. And I work at a tech company, so I love software as a tool to help you find the right people to get in front of, or find the right people to ask to be leaders in their community. But there is no way technology will ever replace the power of having face-to-face. So have coffee with people, have lunches, invite people to come to your office, do video chats when you can't be in the same physical space, but as much as possible, get your bodies together. There is just no price tag you can put on the power of forming those kinds of relationships. And as you grow, you can't be face-to-face with everyone. I wish that I could meet every single customer we have, but it's not possible. So that's where technology helps you figure out who are the people who are your biggest product evangelists, who are the people that are using you a lot or have a lot of influence in their communities, and then get your face in front of those people's faces and ask them to go put their face in front of their community's faces. But that's the only way that communities build, and I think that's the only way that you can be successful scaling a really engaged group of folks.
So a little bit of a face-to-face pyramid scheme, getting everyone to share their faces out there.
Yeah, so in the political organizing world, they call it the snowflake model. So this is how Barack Obama's campaign was structured, which feels a little better than pyramid scheme. That's definitely the metaphor I also think of. So you've got your organization in the center, and then people branching out and branching out and branching out like a snowflake, and that's the only way that that's scalable. But it has to be face to face with whoever's your immediate next people in the snowflake.
Awesome. And Trish, do you have any advice?
All the things everyone else said. In addition to, I think this is something that has happened to me is one of our main jobs is to be the #1 fan of the product and the program, and to be really passionate. And sometimes I've seen as I was building programs, has gotten in my way a little bit, where I've been really, really excited, and everyone should be excited because I'm excited about it. And then when the program gets axed, then I'm really upset about it. So really just remembering to focus on why are you doing the program in the first place? Is it for the community? Is it for customers? And really conveying that, giving examples. Like I mentioned, I sent that Storify to everyone from the CEO to our developers to see how important the community program I was working on was doing with the organization, and really have that proof, because just because people are excited or tweeting about it or you're really excited about it doesn't mean it's actually affecting things within your company. So keep that passion, but also realize how to hone it and how to focus.
Awesome. And Jelena, do you have any advice that you would share?
Yes. I just unmuted and then remuted myself right there. So I think really, one of the things that has been on my mind this week, as I'm actually in the hiring process right now for an influencer community manager. Hi, DM me. One of the things I've been thinking about is really who is suited to this kind of work, and when it's a great choice to be a community manager versus something similar, social media manager, marketing manager, email marketing manager that isn't quite community management. And I think kind of two really important things that have come to mind to think about if you're at the beginning of your community management career. One of them is this something that you actually can't help doing, because then you probably should do it for work, and if not, you might not want to do it for work. Do you just build online communities? If you get into knitting, are you the person who goes and starts a Yahoo group for everybody who uses this kind of yarn, or you go and you create and build a subreddit for every hobby that you get into, or you start doing Google Hangouts like this, or even are you somebody who builds community in real life? You throw a lot of events around things you're interested in. If you can't help being a community manager, then yeah, absolutely do it for work. But if you totally avoid building community around yourself, you might not like it when you're on the phone at 3 in the morning with a really angry, really influential community member. You might be like, wow, I could really just be staring at a Sprout Social dashboard right now and not dealing with this. And then the other thing is kind of that similar, kind of on that same vein, that always on lifestyle that community management has. Are you #1? Do you mind being always on? Do you like being always on? And number two, do you know how to find like those times of respite and those times of caring for yourself in a really always-on startup-y job with startup-y hours? Because I know of very, very few community management jobs that are not startup-y hours. So that's kind of the early level. Yeah, that's the early level. And then dealing with, being somebody who's in the backside of the transition from mid-level to senior and, now reporting to a CEO in my newest job for the first time. It's been a month that I've been a CEO direct report. It's really scary. My CEO is wonderful, but it's really scary knowing that he has his eyes on all of my work. Just I think read a lot. Don't expect it all to be the same skill sets. Expect it to be way, way different than the beginning of your career. Don't expect being smart and hardworking to be enough. You have to make the right decisions and be able to be a leader and be able to hire right. And that a lot of that is learned skills. I've been leaning on my mentors way more in like the last 3 months than I ever have in my life before. So,
yeah, I think that's a good point. Like knowing yourself, I think that's really important. Knowing yourself, knowing your skill set, knowing what you like to do, and sort of being honest with yourself. I think that's a really good point. The advice that I always give to community managers or friends when they're talking about building community and connecting with their community is I always say you got to be a good neighbor. So I always say, like, when you're building a community, you have to be a good neighbor first. So if you move into a new neighborhood, you wouldn't go over to your neighbor's house right away and ask to borrow the lawnmower or ask to borrow something. You'd go over and you'd say hi. You'd take them a pie. You'd do a lot of things. You'd build this relationship first. You'd be a good neighbor before you'd start asking for those things. So I always say give some more, and then you're okay to ask. But it all comes down to being a good neighbor, and I think that's beyond just building community. I think that's relating to other community professionals. So that would be my other advice, is connect with other people in your industry like we're doing now. Connect with people that you admire, that you're interested in. Build your own network, build your own community at the same time as you're building the larger community that you're working on, because I think they really go hand in hand and they work together. So I think I'm going to hand it back over to the my community manager team, but I just wanted to thank everyone so much for participating in this panel. This has been fantastic, and 50 minutes was not nearly enough. So I'd love to stay in contact, and I'd love to chat with you guys more, and hopefully move this on over to Twitter. But this has been wonderful, so thank you so much. And Sherry and Brew and Dom, we're all back to you.
Awesome.
Thanks a lot. That was
awesome in stereo.
Yeah, that was sweet. That's how awesome you guys were.
Too, because I'm so not done having this like awesome conversation with Destin and Trish and Megan.
Well, here's the great news: is actually after we go off air, this hangout still gets to hang out if you guys want to. So, yeah, unfortunately we have to get the next panel in.
Yeah.
And
Thanks, guys.
It's a great problem to have, though.
Great problem to have. So I hope you guys can still hang out with us for the rest of the day. Next we have coming up building an advocate community for your brand. So if you're watching and you want some more, head over to cmad.co, click on the broadcast schedule, find the next slot, click that, and we'll be there in a few minutes. So happy Community Manager Appreciation Day, guys.
Cheers, folks.
Bye.